Unfortunately, as time goes on, high-quality 3D models are getting harder and harder to find. Kind of like how it's getting harder and harder to find a man from Detroit without a criminal record. I have always had fascination with finding low-quality 3D assets in places they shouldn't be, because finding them and subsequently showing them off to an audience of 51,000 people gives me a high similar to that of giving an amphetamine to a lab rat. I love it. Oh, I feel like an IRS agent auditing a black family without green cards making $12,000 a year who forgot to pay taxes on a $3 bottle of Gatorade, but with 3D models. Previous examples of this include the toothbrush that caused severe lag for an entire indie game, and the Pillar Chase 2 characters that had more faces than the rest of all the assets in the game combined. While these models are hilarious and incredibly profitable for me, I've only recently come across a new phenomenon. You see, all the models I've covered in the past were unintentionally low quality. The developers just messed up. Never in my darkest nightmares would I conjure the vision that a professional 3D model would be intentionally ruined. And you'll never guess what I found. So in this video, we're going to be discussing exactly who is doing this, why they're doing it, and finally, what it could look like for the future of 3D art. And we start here. Recently on Roblox, there's been a tsunami of games being published with 3D models that look like a Labubu got raped by a brick wall. I'm talking about games like Steal a Brain Rot, Grow a Garden, and Plants vs. Brain Rots. The utter brain dead aspect of these games makes me want to eat a piece of sheet metal when I say their names out loud. The visual aspect of these games is non-existent. They look horrible, and the object of all of them is some variation of doing the same monotonous task over and over again for money. Now I know what you're thinking.
Clonemace, if these games suck so much, there's probably no one playing them, so why bother making a video on them?
Well, you see, that's the thing. Steal a Brain Rot had a peak concurrent player count equal to the total population of Iceland, the Bahamas, Albania, Mongolia, Panama, Finland, and Paraguay combined. Throughout all of the ADHD, Adderall, Zins, and TikTok scrolling you've done today, let's just take 5 seconds of silence to comprehend what I just said. .3% of the world's entire f***ing population was playing Steal a Brain Rot at the same time. US presidents have focused on immigration, war, and domestic issues for centuries, but for once I have to disagree with them and say the greatest act of terrorism is this. Now, actually solving this problem is a completely different tower to crash, so let's just focus on the 3D models for now. In the midst of all my market research, I found that this isn't really a problem that 1 or 2 games have. I mean, while it's true the most popular games on Roblox, the most popular games of all time have this problem. There are tens of thousands of other games like this that just aren't quite as popular, but, still have a few thousand players. In the past few months, it's all that people have been publishing on Roblox. Same graphics, same art style, same boring task repeated thousands of times for more money, same ugly 3D models! It's not like these models even have bad topology, they're just boring. So unjust in living up to the likes of their inspiration, and so uninspired that it makes me sad. It's like spawning a cube in Blender and calling it a fully red-apologized realistic model of Godzilla. It's just an insult to 3D art. 3D models require a degree of realism to properly ascertain that the audience viewing them doesn't come out a bunch of brain-dead zombies. I think these games alone are contributing to the rising autism rate in children. So, we have the what. it's evident that these awful models are popular, insulting to 3D work, and corrupting the minds of tens of millions of children. We know what it is. We have the what, we have the T, we have the Austrian artist committing the mass genocide. But what we don't have is the why. Why is this art style so popular? Why do people like this style of simplicity and stupidity? There's no cause for this. Or is there? To find the answer, we have to go back to the height of the Cold War in 1966. Back when a loaf of bread cost less than $1. The psychologist Dr. Elliot Aronson was conducting experiments with his team on a fascinating topic: how the attractiveness of a superior person was increased when they blundered or deemed themselves to be more human. I know you guys are scrolling on Reels while watching this, so to dumb it down for you, what Dr. Aronson was trying to prove is if that Brook Monk or Madison Beer were to trip or fall or make a mistake, it would make them more attractive, because making that mistake shows their humanity. It decreases our perception of them as godlike figures and makes us realize that they're human, just like us, and we might actually have a shot with them! In a complex, nearly metaphysical sense, the godlike showing their humanity makes them fall not to our level, but rather in our own selfish perceptions, makes us rise to their level. You see, as humans, we have a desire to be one with God, one with the makers of the world. And because most of us are too busy gooning to find a real spiritual connection with a higher power, we instead attach the title of God to celebrity figures, or even people in our own life that we find really attractive or high status. When those people make mistakes or mess up, they lose their godlike aura and become seen as human. In other words, our minds perceive us as being on the same level as them because they're also human. Therefore, when godlike figures make mistakes, we see ourselves as equal to them or equal to a god. So no wonder we're attracted to perfect people making mistakes. Many psychologists over the years continued research on this theory, but Dr. Elliot Aronson was the first person to give it a name, so we're gonna credit him for the rest of the video. The idea of perfect things becoming more perfect when they demonstrate their imperfection is called the pratfall effect. It can be seen everywhere in the corporate world if you're just paying attention. If you've ever seen a cookie commercial and the cookie had a few cracks in it, if you've ever seen Family Guy and watched Peter Griffin make hilarious mistakes, and finally, if you've ever played Steal a Brainrot and witnessed the ugly 3D models, it's all because of the pratfall effect. When we see something that we think should be perfect, and that something shows us its imperfection, we are more attracted to that thing. So as Elliot Aronson proved roughly 6 decades ago, of course we like the models in Steal a Brainrot. Of course we love its imperfect style and want more of it. The 3D models of the most popular game in the world should be the greatest thing you've ever seen. So of course we experience a shock of emotion when we see how imperfect they are. Wow, the 3D models of the world's most popular video game are simple. Even I could make that. So no, the rise of these brain-rot, stud-textured 3D models that seem to have no life or soul isn't due to laziness or lack of skill from the developer. It's due to 60 years of psychological research about how we are attracted to the imperfections of what we think is perfect. And no, this style of 3D art isn't going anywhere. I think this is just the beginning of a long and popular trend of simple, imperfect things filling up our lives as more and more corporations and large groups discover how much we love the ideas described in the pratfall effect. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you want to see more of my videos, you're more than welcome to.